Call to order the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board of Thursday, November 17th, 2022. Present at the front table to my far left is Jessica Vitale, a voting member.
Good evening.
Next to Jessica is Ed McGargy, a voting member. To my left, Ernie Angelos, our solicitor.
Good evening.
My immediate right, Bill Rhodes, a voting member. Next to Bill is Jesse Winton, voting member.
Good evening.
Margie Buchanan, deputy zoning boss for Haverford Township. We have one continued and one new case on the agenda this evening. Before we begin, Bill, would you please lead the charge? All right. And Bill, you read the entire description for this.
I did,
right?
yeah. Yes, I did.
All right. Our first case, which is continued from the last hearing, is Z22-24, New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, doing business as AT&T Mobility, lessee of 1808 Caracon Drive, Ardmore, PA, DC folio number 2206-0125400. And unless somebody specifically requests, since the complete case description read into the record at the prior hearing, I won't read it. If anybody would like me to read the entire description into the record? No? Okay, good. Shoot. Okay.
Thank you.
Where are we at? Exhibit scheme.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're up to 14. Here's the formal. 16? Is that
Right,
where we are?
that's correct. That's correct. And thank you, members of the board.
Chris, right?
Mr. Chairman, correct.
Do you have another packet?
I do.
May I have? Thank you. This doesn't have the list.
So thank you again, Christopher Schubert, for the record, on behalf of the applicant, New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, doing business.
Chris, what do you have as A15? On your list, your pre-marked list, it says reserved, A15 and 16 are reserved.
Well, A15 was the CV of Peter Albano, who's our engineer.
And 16?
And 16 is a new exhibit, which I just handed up. It's a photograph of the frontage.
No, he was just talking about it in the last meeting. We were stopped at 15.
Yes, at 15, correct.
Well,
And 16, you might have 16 in there, and that actually is a duplicate of another exhibit. You can remove that. That's actually A9, if that was in your original packet.
Okay, so A16 has yet to be
That's
identified?
correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So we're up to 15. 15 is the last marked exhibit, just to make sure we have everything straight.
That's right.
Okay. Go ahead, Chris.
So last time, and again, thank you for getting this back on the agenda so quickly, and we are able to work with our engineers to try to get some additional answers to the zoning hearing board members and to some of the questions that were raised. And what I have handed up and what I sent to Kelly Kirk, I guess it was a couple of days ago, and hopefully she got additional advanced copies out to each of the board members, are revised site plans, which have been last revised November 15. And these site plans hopefully address many of the comments that have been raised by the board at the last hearing. Essentially what we've done is we've provided some additional information and have done a redesign of the compound. I know Ms. Vitale had raised an issue about the possibility of moving the pole a little bit more further interior to the property so that we could minimize to the greatest extent any of the rear and side yard setback variances that were being requested. So actually, I think this design works out much better. We were able to actually flip the whole equipment and the tower around within the compound and push the tower more to the northeast or to the more interior part of the property and the interior part of that compound. And in doing so, we were able to essentially reduced the setback. I think originally it was 8.5 feet. Now it is 21 feet to that side yard setback. And similarly to the rear yard, the proposed setback now to the rear yard has been increased to 12 feet. And in also relocating the equipment, in my opinion, and in discussing with the engineer, who again is here tonight, the generator is now pushed further away from the road and more to the interior behind the building. So I think in the event that there was a power outage and the generator had to run, that's now much further away from any habitable structure. So I think that was also a benefit. There was questions raised with regard to the floodplain. The engineers were able to determine that the actual floodplain elevation for the 100-year flood is at 252.5 feet. And we've extended contour lines through the remainder of that back part of the property, and you can see that the contour that is closest to where the pole and the equipment is at 268. So we're well outside of the floodplain, and actually it looks like even the side of the railroad tracks closest to this property is also out of the floodplain. And that was as a result of that retaining wall that had been built up at the back part of the property. Now, Mr. Leonard, who was a site acquisition consultant, was able to talk with the property owner to get a little bit more detail regarding the construction of that retaining wall. And the property owners are here tonight if there's any specific question about that. But Mr. Fiocca is, and was, I don't know if you're retired at this point, but was a contractor for many years and was the one who put in that retaining wall. And as has been described to Mr. Leonard, it was quite a substantial retaining wall put in with concrete, rebar, and has been there for as long as that building has been there. So that essentially takes the property itself by natural contours was out of the floodplain, and now this is well outside of the floodplain. Our engineer would further be able to talk about the actual ultimate design of the tower and what would be involved with regard to designing a foundation for that tower. At this point, the tower has not been designed. That would always come at the time of building permit issuance, and then a structural engineer would go out and actually design a foundation and the tower itself. This foundation would more than likely be what would be considered a caisson foundation that would be drilled down into the ground with a very large post hole digger. And then, depending upon the soils, based upon a geotechnical investigation of the soils, that's really what would drive the design of the foundation of that tower. We also, in further investigating the use of the property with the property owner, Mr. Leonard learned that, and this is also shown on Z1, if you see where the existing building is located, there are now 4 heavy dark lines that are drawn on what would be the eastern side of the building that faces Carrigan Drive. They represent the garage doors that open to the building. And marked as applicant's exhibit A16 is a Google Earth view of the street view off of Carrigan Drive looking at the front of that building. And Mr. Leonard was able to learn, and this can certainly be confirmed by the property owner, those 2 bays that are over on the right-hand side with the garage doors opened up are being currently leased to a car detailer. And the car detailer details exclusively for the Audi dealer, which is down the road. So if the Audi dealer needs a used car, a used Audi, or another car to be detailed, the car detailer will run down the street, pick up the car, drive it in, and detail it at that location. I understand, based upon discussing it with Mr. Fiocca as well as Mr. Leonard, that this use has been fully permitted, and the township is aware of that use. And then the other two bays are for storage. The bay on the furthest left-hand side is used by Mr. Fiocca for his own storage purposes, and the other bay is used for storage for a landscaper. So it's just for equipment storage, and there's no employees or nobody who shows up on any given time to go in there to utilize that storage bay. Now, under the township regulations, under the parking, off-street parking requirements, we've added detail to the zoning bulk table, sheet Z1. The parking requirements as a catch-all requires 1 space per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. That building dimensions out to 30 by 65. We added the size of the building at 1,950 square feet, and that would require the usage of or require or mandate 2 off-street parking spaces. What the engineers have done and what typically has been done with regard to parking is to park on the, I guess would be the northern side of the property along Carrigan Drive. So the engineers have dimensioned off 4 parking spaces coming in as required 9 feet by 18 feet. So Mr. Fiocca would be here to confirm that there's never really been any issue with regard to parking with the given usage in that building, and with the additional usage with this proposed cell tower, with the fact that maintenance would only be required more than likely once every quarter, that there would be more than adequate parking. And Mr. Leonard also confirmed that the proposal for access would be along that side of the building, the side yard to the south side of that building, which dimensions to about 8 feet in width, which is wide enough for a technician to walk up, open up that gate, and get into that facility. So that's the additional information. I have, again, the engineer here tonight. Mr. Leonard is here tonight, as well as the property owners, if any of the board members have any specific questions regarding that additional
Before we do that,
information.
did you identify A17 for the record? You handed it up with this additional packet.
Yeah, so
17 and 18.
A17 and 18 are pictures of the back part of the property. These were taken by Mr. Leonard just recently. So these would show existing site conditions. Where you see on A17 that red stake, that would be the survey stake where the proposed location would be for the tower. Now, of course, that will change because of the change in the site plan. So that stake is going to move closer towards the building, further away from both the rear and the side yard property lines. A18 is just another picture looking at the back part of the compound area towards the building, and you also see that surveyed stake identifying the location of the center line of the tower.
Okay.
Oh, and I should also mention to the board, what I've added with regard to these exhibit packets is a revised addendum. I sent this along to Kelly this morning. I'm not sure that she got it out to the board members, but this now provides the changed or modified requests for relief based upon the reconfiguration of the compound for the equipment and the tower location.
Good from an advertising.
Can you also confirm that you removed the barbed wire?
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. Sheet Z2, there was a detail for the barbed wire, and I don't want to make a liar out of me, and yeah, it looks like that reference has been removed. I'm sorry, sheet Z4 had the details of the fence.
So, Chris, just what changed from the prior request to the current request?
So it would be the tower setback under item number 2. So the required setback, 50% of the height of the tower would be 37.5 feet. Now changing the location of the tower, we increased the setback to the rear property line to 12 feet, so that a variance of 25.5 feet to the rear property line would be required. And then we also increased the setback to the side, the southern side property line to 21 feet, which would require a variance of 16.5 feet to that side property line. I think that was originally, and I also wanted to point out with the equipment, that's the issue under number 3. With regard to the modification of both the tower and the equipment, the side yard under the underlying zoning regulations for the area and bulk requirements would be 50 feet. The equipment walking cabinet is now the closest accessory structure or use that would be closest to that property line, and that would be at 8 feet. And I wanted to point out to the board that the existing building setback is at 8 feet, which would establish a non-conforming setback. We're trying to match that with the equipment cabinet. To the rear property line with the relocation of the generator, that generator would now be 3 feet to that rear property line. But again, the required setback is at 75 feet. This property itself there would be no conforming setback on this property given those underlying area and bulk requirements. So this property essentially is itself non-conforming, and none of the building on the property itself does not meet that any of those underlying yard setbacks. I think everything else is the same. With regard to number 5, that was with regard to the impervious surface. And as you can see with the pictures, even that back part of the property is in gravel, and under the code and typically how it's construed by township engineers, gravel represents or would be considered impervious. And as a result, the entire property, including the building and the rear yard, would be under impervious surface. We're not adding anything. Essentially, we're putting down a concrete pad and a tower over impervious surface, so we're not creating any new additional impervious surface. And then we had touched upon the other issues with regard to the requirement for landscaping, the thought being that since this is in a fenced-in compound existing and we're going to create another compound and the entire area back there is impervious gravel, that it would not really benefit in putting up any sort of tree, like an arborvitae or vegetative screen. And the proposal was to put in slats within a chain link fence to shield the equipment from view at the street level. And then, we addressed the other issues with regard to the radio frequency requirements under the code, items number 7 and 8. If there's any further questions about that, Mr. Peterson, the radio frequency engineer, is here again tonight.
Okay, so Chris, does that complete your case in chief?
It does. I would move my exhibits.
We'll see if any of the board members have questions for you, and more appropriately, probably for your witnesses. I wasn't here, Bill, so you have witness list.
Okay.
Do you have questions?
Yeah, just a couple. So thanks for the plans. Just to be clear, some of the new exhibits under 15, I guess it's 14. So Exhibit 14 is now replacing the old Exhibit 14.
Yeah, so what I've done is I've identified this as 14A.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure it's clear on the record what of the original exhibits which were already entered into are going to be superseded. And it looks to me that under Exhibit 2 on the original package, at the back of the option and lease agreement, where there were Exhibit 1 had some, or after Exhibit 1, there were a couple pages of diagrams, or at least two, the first two pages after Exhibit 1, that those would be superseded by 14A also?
That's right. Typically, what would happen, and Mr. Leonard can attest to this, what they would do is do a revised addendum to that agreement that would have a different sketch plan.
I just want to make sure that we get real clarity on the new plan is superseding exhibits previously submitted, and it wasn't just 14, it was, I think these two pages should be superseded also.
That's correct.
Okay. So on the fourth page of the new exhibit 14A, which shows the overhead view, it's the overall site plan. So for the cars and the trucks to get in to pour the concrete, excavate the area for the slab, pour the slab, put up the pole, they would be coming through the northwest side. That, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that in Exhibit 16, you can see that that's a wide enough chain link fence gate to get a vehicle in there, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And is that how they would access the site for the construction?
And I would let either the engineer or the site acquisition, Pete Albano, our
And
civil
Peter, you were
engineer.
previously sworn, right? So you're still sworn?
Yeah, that is correct.
He was qualified as a physical engineer,
Professional engineer.
professional, okay.
Licensed with the Commonwealth.
That is correct. The construction vehicles would enter through that.
And then the idea is after it's up, you were talking about the access gate on the southeast side of the building, that generally you wouldn't need to get a vehicle back there. You would just walk in through that side of the building, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And so which are the two designated, which, you said you need two parking spaces, but this page, the overall site plan shows, I think, 4 numbered.
Yeah, so it shows excess parking. The issue with showing the 4 was, again, the catch-all provision under the code is one parking space per 1,000 square feet. There's also another provision that talked about parking for uses. So if the telecommunication use is now considered a separate principal use, that there should be another parking space for that. That would make 3. And I think that was just an effort to show that there would be sufficient area to park vehicles, even if vehicles maybe had been parked, were blocking a gate, somebody wanted to get into the gate for some reason, they could shift the vehicle around and move it to another spot.
So if there were a problem with the pole, the generator, something that you needed to get a vehicle in there, the 2 spots that are depicted on the overall site plan, Z1 of Exhibit 14A, at night there would be, when business is not open in the detailing shop, there will be no cars parked there?
That is my understanding. Is that, and maybe I can have the, so why don't, Mr. Fiocca, if you want to be sworn? David Fiocca?
How you doing, Mr. Fiocca?
Pretty good.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Help me God.
And so your full name and address for the record?
David Fiocca, 2013, Haverford Road, Ardmore.
Now, Mr. Fiocca?
Yeah.
So you're the owner of the property?
Yeah.
And you're familiar with the business that is conducted on the property, the car
Yes.
detailing business?
Absolutely.
And we had identified on the plan 4 parking spaces that would be kind of to the north side of that
Yes.
building.
Yeah.
Is there any concern with regard to parking of vehicles overnight for that auto detailing?
Never has them out there. Never. Maybe once in a blue moon.
Right.
Usually, nothing's out there.
Okay. So if we were to grant the variances requested and let this go on, would you be okay if we conditioned that approval that there could be no parking in front of that gate if the businesses are not in use? So in other words, if there's no one at the detailing store
Right.
working, then there would be no one there to move a parked car if it were blocking the gate to get into the back. Would you,
Nobody's usually there.
okay, so you'd be okay if we conditioned
Yeah.
an approval? Okay, great. And then the other 2 spots look like they block the northwestmost bay, right? And so presumably, as shown in your picture in Exhibit 16, doors open, cars parked there, understood, right? That's when the business is running. Presumably in the winter, they'd be detailing inside, there might be a car blocking that gate, right, or blocking those doors. But at some point, it might become a problem, right? That you've got cars inside that need to come out, you have parked cars in these designated spots. So how do they do that? They just keep shuffling cars around?
Yeah, so I think the only active business would be the car detailing business. So the other business is storage, and no one needs that. They're just,
Right.
they drop off their stuff, or they pick up their stuff and they're gone. The active business is the car detailing business. And if it is in operation, they're going to be able to
He
shuffle cars.
picks it
around.
up and dresses it up and puts something else up, comes back.
Okay, yeah, I mean, as shown in the picture, he's got cars inside and cars outside working. And at the same time, there's a car parked in front of your storage lot. Yeah, I don't know if you see.
That's his car.
Oh, that,
Yeah, you got to detail his car, yeah,
all right.
yeah.
And, Mr. Schubert, you had mentioned that the dimensions for each of these spots, I think you said was 9 feet.
9 by 18.
9 by 18.
Required by the code.
And that includes the southeasternmost spot, which, because the road is kind of cutting in on the property line. You're still getting 18 feet, and you're not in the right-of-way?
That's correct.
In-
Well, actually, technically, that whole building is in the right-of-way, because the right-of-way is 80 feet wide, so from the
Yeah.
center line of the road is in the right-of-way.
So we're having designated parking in the right-of-way.
Right, but there's no restriction under the code that I saw against that. And it would be similar, like if you would have parking along a public road,
Yeah.
there's parking within the right-of-way.
And there's parking on the other side of Karakung Drive?
There is, I
Yeah.
believe that there
And-
is.
and
If I
that's-
saw a Google view,
Yeah.
there's parking.
And that's public parking, anyone can park there?
Yes.
Anytime?
Yes.
And it's not, is there signs limiting public parking?
No signs at all there, no.
Okay. And do you know who lives across the street or who owns the
Yeah,
property?
John Wildman. Lives in that house up on the hill there. And the other is, what's his name's yard? Bill Garrity. Bill Garrity. Garrity,
Garrity.
yeah.
Hold on one
Landscaping
sec.
contractor.
Okay,
You said a painting contractor?
Landscaping.
Landscape.
landscape contractor.
Okay, and then, so just to make it clear, the pole has been moved from now closer to the building, further from the rear yard and the side yard setback, correct?
That's correct.
And the generator, though, is now behind the slab, between the slab and the chain link fence, which is on the property line. Is that correct?
Well, it's 3 feet off the property line. Right,
It's 3 feet inside the chain link fence.
correct.
Is that right? I presume the chain link fence is hard against the property line,
It
or hard
is,
on it.
it is.
Okay. All right, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Jesse?
I guess falling under other relief that you might need, I think that you also need relief from accessory structures from the rear of the building and from the side setback. Right, we're essentially calling this chained-in area an accessory structure.
Well, the accessory structures would be the equipment. So the generator, I guess technically the concrete pad as a structure being attached to the ground and extending above it, and then the walk-in cabinet.
So on drawing number Z2 of 14A, you've provided an enlarged plan there, with some additional dimensions.
Yes.
And so one dimension shows 7 feet from the fence to the back of the building. And normally we require 10 feet behind the building to any accessory structure. So I guess, in the spirit of that is so that that's for emergency workers to be able to fight a fire if there was a fire in the building. Is there any way to get a little bit more distance between the fence and the back of the building? There seems to be a little bit of space between the equipment and the fence.
So you said 7 feet, and I don't see that dimension on Z2. Do you have that? Oh, I see.
So there's a 17-foot 3 dimension of the fence and then a 7-foot dimension to the building. So I'm wondering if the 17-foot 3 dimension can be reduced by some amount to increase the space back there, just to provide, more clearance.
What's your thought about that, Pete?
So if you go to detail Z3, or sheet Z3 on 14A, that gives you the details for the cabinet, the walk-in cabinet.
Okay.
There's equipment on the outside of that, including the access door and the power cabinet.
Okay.
So that's why they need the distances there.
Okay. So that number the 7 foot can't be increased. You've created the yard, the fenced-in yard is as small as it can be?
Yes.
Okay. And then returning one page back to Z1, and further to the questions about the parking, the first 2 spots, there is a gate there, is that correct? It's not noted. I just want to confirm that there is a gate to allow access from the northwest corner.
That is correct.
Okay. Is it right at the edge of the building, or is it set back a bit? It's hard.
No, I don't think you'd see it on that one.
So it's offset from the edge of the building.
It is, okay.
If you look at A16, which is the Google Street View.
Okay, I see the fence, okay, I see the fence now.
So the larger post that's in the middle that you see there, that's the start of the gate.
Okay, and is it a double gate?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That was all my questions.
Jessica?
I don't have any questions.
Ed?
Yeah, the questions I have, the existing gravel drive on the north side of the building, what is that area used for?
Mr. Fiocca? So when you're facing the building, on the right-hand side, and then just immediately as you go around, you go through. Yeah, so you go around that. So what's back behind? So let me, storage?
Yes.
So let me show you. what
Outside storage.
We're talking about this area in here,
Yeah, outside storage.
okay?
You see lumber in there, tree trunks, this and that. And he
So the landscaper
moves
is
them in and
renting,
out, you know what I mean?
the landscaper is renting that area, or is he
Yes.
renting he's not renting one of the stalls in the?
Yes, he is too, yeah,
So he rents the stall and he rents the existing gravel drive?
yeah.
Okay, this is a little unusual for me. I don't think I've ever had a plan come in where the building is actually in the right of way. The problem I'm having with it is that we already have many nonconformities on the property. The new proposed use is going to add, not correct any of the existing nonconformities. So you're going to add to the problem. That's not only something that we don't like to approve, because that's not the goal of having zoning, to increase the amount of nonconformities. And if that area is leased by the landscaper, I don't know that I heard you testify that the detailer had a license with the township. Does the landscaper?
I don't know.
Okay. That's the questions I have. So the overuse of the property currently and the nonconformities. I don't have any other questions.
So I have one follow-up. If the rear, it's called the rear yard, is being used for outdoor storage, how will the vehicles get through there to install this monopole?
Well, Mr. Fiocca, you would understand that the tenants would have to remove that
Yeah, yeah,
to get that construction done,
give him
right?
access, yeah.
Yeah, and you don't have any issue with dictating or requiring that the tenants do that
No, I'll
for
speak
that
to him,
purpose?
I'll speak to him, that's all.
Okay.
You can make it work.
And then they would maintain vehicle accessibility afterwards, in case a vehicle did need to get in, to put out a fire?
A fire truck is to get back there anyway.
Well,
If nothing was there.
Agreed, I mean, there may be different ways to do it, but we typically, the idea is that we're filling in this back lot with more and more improvements, which are electrical in nature and all that, and we do want to be cognizant of safety issues.
Yeah.
Typically, as Mr. Point pointed out, we have 10-foot required gaps between accessory buildings and main buildings to allow a vehicle to get in. Here, it's gated to allow a vehicle to come in. We already heard that testimony. A vehicle would need to access it to install it. We've heard that no vehicle would be needed to maintain it. Sure, up until a point when, if there was significant maintenance, a vehicle might need to get in there. So how do we know a vehicle can ever get in there?
Maybe the issue, and it sounds like there's a concern with regard to access in the event of an emergency. So maybe the issue would be
Excuse me.
that,
You have access if you have to, those overhead doors I have out front. One of them I have also in the back, so you can let it get to
But
the
I'm not
yard.
sure we typically,
Yeah,
thank you.
I'm just
Yeah,
telling you.
I'm just not sure that we typically would rely on a pass-through garage.
Right,
to
I
provide
understand that, yeah.
well, here's another thought, and I'm sure that this could be done. We have the owner here, the engineer here. There is a fence along that southern property line. I think maybe an elegant solution on this would be, we have that whole triangular portion that's open that you can see on the Google Earth view, the aerial view. Perhaps as a condition, what we could do is require that there be a large gate that would be placed on that instead of just having a straight-through fence, that the owner would be obligated, working with AT&T, to install a large gate that could have a knockbox attached to it where they could cut the lock or have access, the fire department would have access and just swing it open if there was an issue.
I think it's an interesting idea. The question would be whether the contour of the land outside of the retaining wall area would allow a fence to open like that, because you're on a hill.
Well, it's flat out there.
It's flat.
Well, the contour shows, right, we're talking in the southeast corner, right? What is it? Yeah, so it's, I'm on the third page of exhibit 14A. So if this gate were to open
Come
out,
right there, yeah.
I guess it could open in, right, easily, but I don't know that it opens out easily, given the contour.
Well, actually, it drops off, so,
Because it goes down, when you swing, if the gates swing out, you're not gonna be swinging up, you're not swinging uphill.
yeah.
There'll be a larger gap with the gates fully open.
So,
Open like this. Open out. Okay, yeah, okay.
Do you mind if Arnie imposes?
All right, I understand. So, hold on one second. So the idea would be in in the southeast corner on the east wall, or the east side of the fence, you would have a vehicular gate installed?
yeah, that's what my suggestion would be, and I'm sure that can be engineered.
Or we could come up in here. He's talking about here, we can't go that far, but we can be up in.
Okay, so,
in this area.
so Mr. Albano is referencing that where the proposed gate access into that compound would be located, to do an access gate off of that property line that could be swung open at that location.
And have you figured out who owns this triangular property adjacent?
I actually spent all day Monday at the Delaware County Recorder of Deeds office trying to figure that out. And it was originally the Pennsylvania Western Railroad, and I think ultimately that's who it ended up with, although there is some indication without having, there's an old survey plan that refers to this lot, the subject property is Lot 4, which implies to me that there's a Lot 5, that might be that triangular piece, but without finding that survey plan, which is not of record, I suspect it's still with the railroad, with SEPTA now.
But, and so on this page 3, which identifies, I think, this triangular piece as belonging to Mr. Fiocco.
And he's been paying taxes on it. And the Board of Assessment, I actually spoke with the Board of Assessment too, and the Board of Assessment said, oh yeah, he owns it because he's paying taxes on it.
I hope.
But
I'm sorry.
I didn't see any legal description that established that.
If I may, I just had one quick question to kind of augment a little bit of what Vice Chairman Rhodes had questioned about with regard to the access on the gravel with respect to the landscapers' storage back there. I know the owner testified that we could have that access, but did anybody speak with the landscaper? Does the landscaper know that they may have to grant this access? My concern is the quiet enjoyment he's got in his lease. And, the landlord being bound by that, just simply averring that, we could have access may not be something that actually is granted under the lease.
Well, I know the lease is month to month, so
Okay.
you might be bound for a month to it, so.
That'll solve that
Is that
problem.
correct, Mr. Fiocca? Yeah.
All right. Who is the landscaper? Does anybody know?
Who's the name of the landscaper?
You're not sworn. If you, that's okay. If you want to call,
Yeah,
Mrs.
Mrs.
Fiocca.
Fiocca?
if you want.
It's not
Okay.
that important.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
how about if we take a vote on this? Go to the public. All right? All right, we're going to take a 2-minute recess.
Thank you.
He's not in front of that Judge Andrews.
And we're good.
He's a real tough guy. All right, we'll resume the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board. All right. Any additional questions? Bill?
Nope.
Jesse?
No.
Jessica?
No.
Ed?
I do not.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add, Chris, before we close the record?
Nothing else.
Okay. With that, I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that wishes to testify. Anyone present that received regular mail? Any other resident of Haverford Township? With that, we'll close the record on this case and we'll render a decision either this evening, or if we're unable to render a decision this evening, one would be rendered at our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is either December 1st or the 15th. We have only one case listed for the 1st, and there's a chance that may be continued. If it's continued, then the decision would be on the 15th. But we'll try to get it done tonight.
Okay,
That's
thank
it.
you.
Thank you. You admitted all your.
I
all
did.
your
I
exhibits
moved
were
all those exhibits.
removed. They were admitted.
I did.
Okay.
And does also the board would deliberate after the last hearing tonight?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's how quick the next case goes in.
Okay.
It doesn't look like it's a real complex case.
okay, thank you.
All right. Our next case is Z22-29. I'm going to do my best with your names. Jazz Beer and Jazz Kieran Kaur. Owners of 1245 Briarwood, Havertown, PA, DC folio number 2201-0019400, who seeks variances from provisions of section 182, 207C4 and 7 to construct a one-story, 561 square foot, 14-foot by 6-inch by 38-foot by 8-inch rear addition that will exceed the allowable 30%, 1,800 square foot of building coverage by 154 square feet, 32.57%, and encroach into the required 25-foot rear yard setback by 7 feet and 1/2 inch. Property is R5 and located in the first ward. Please come forward. Whoever the primary spokesperson is. Okay, and now I'm going to ask you, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Help me God.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Jessica and Core, 1425 Briarwood Road, Havertown.
So, you were sitting in the audience during the prior hearing, and you heard certain things, documents that they handed out, they were marked as exhibits. And you need to do the same in your case. There is a site plan attached to the application that you submitted to the township. Presumably, you're going to refer to this during your hearing, right? So would you like this site plan to be marked Exhibit A, which stands for applicant 1, number 1?
I guess I'll refer to Ali Hayes, who is our architect and represents us. So, yes, you can.
You're going to testify, right?
Yes.
So I'll spare you as well. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and the capacity in which you appear, please?
My name is Ellie Hayes, and I'm the architect responsible for the design and construction of this proposed addition.
Okay. And have you represented clients in front of zoning boards before, Ellie?
Yes.
Okay. So then you know the drill. There's this site plan. Would you like that marked as Exhibit A1?
That's fine.
You should definitely talk to that microphone.
That's fine.
And are there any other exhibits, photographs, or anything that you plan to refer to during the hearing?
Yes, I'll have more exhibits as I go through my explanation.
Okay, so you'll just mark them as you go? And
Yes, please.
hand them up? That's
Yep.
fine. So are you going to give us the summary of what you plan to do?
Yes, I'd like just Karen to just talk to you about the reason why they're looking for this addition first.
Okay.
Okay,
So we are hoping to expand our living space because we have a growing family, kids are growing up, and especially with COVID, we realized that we needed more living space, people working from home and kids doing homeschooling. Also, our neighbors on both ends, they have those additional spaces, and they are very supportive of us having an additional space. And we have been living in Haverford Town for more than a decade. We like living here. Our kids have friends, so we just want to have a more livable space in this community. Thank you.
you're requesting a variance, right? So
Yeah,
just so you're clear, a variance is when you need something. not
that's why we're here.
when You need the
Yeah.
additional living space for those reasons, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ellie.
Yes, so let's get started. The addition that we're proposing is 14 foot 6 deep by 38 feet 8 wide, and that would amount to 561 square feet. And here is, I'm going to give you photographs of the existing house, rear yard, and also a rendering of the proposed addition. The photographs of the rear yard would be Exhibit A2, or
How many sheets are there?
there, the photograph of the existing house is one sheet, and then the rendering is four sheets.
Okay, are they stapled together?
Yes.
As a packet?
Yes.
So describe that one again for me in your right hand, please. That's a photo of the existing house, right?
Right, photos of
So
the existing
why don't
house.
you mark that A2?
A2, okay. Okay,
Do you have copies to give to?
yes.
And how about if you mark the photos
A2?
of the renderings as A3? Is that okay, Ellie? Yes. Thank you. Yeah, Bill, this A2, and this is A3. Yeah, both, Ernie. You have the sequence, Margie? This is A2, this packet is A3.
Okay, so the rear yard, the rear wall of the addition will be 17 feet 11 and a half inches from the rear property line, and it will encroach into the 25-foot rear yard setback by 6 foot 6 and a half inches. The side yard setbacks are not affected. This proposed addition will exceed the building coverage of 30% by 2.57% for a total of 32.57%. The impervious coverage is 37.38%, which is under the maximum allowable of 45%. The new addition will cover an existing concrete pad, which is 9 foot 9 deep by 23 feet 9 wide, or 231.56 square feet.
So Ellie, in A2, there's a photo that shows the pad, right?
Yes.
So the addition would be the size of that pad? Or
Well, it's going to
larger?
be larger than the pad, yes. So we took a look at what we would have to do to make an addition that would fit within the required area and bulk requirements of this district. And in order to stay within the 25-foot rear yard setback, our addition would only be 7 foot 3 inches deep. and would not provide the type of space that my client needs in order to enjoy the addition, or in order to take care of the things that they need to take care of. And then if we were to construct an addition that would be under the maximum building coverage only, so if we were just to apply one of the requirements, the maximum building coverage, it would result in an addition that's 10 feet, 3 inches deep, which would encroach into the rear yard setback by 3 feet, but it's still not enough space to meet the requirements of, or to meet the needs of my clients.
So Ellie, real quick, in A2 at the bottom picture, the rear addition, 1427 Briarwood, that is an addition built onto the back of that house?
Yes, that's the neighboring house, yes.
Would this proposed addition go back as far or a little less than their addition?
The same distance. I have another exhibit to show you.
Okay.
That will explain that. So, the next exhibit is, I have 2 exhibits that are each one sheet.
Okay, why don't you describe, and then we'll mark.
Okay.
Show them to me.
The first exhibit is
Aerial?
a site plan, an aerial view, which is close-up of the 1425 Briarwood, and then the neighbors on either side of 1425 Briarwood. And the second exhibit is a larger aerial view, which shows the entire, or it shows a good part of the street of Briarwood.
Okay, so the first one, the aerial view will be A4. And
A4.
the larger aerial view will be A5.
Okay.
Thank you. If I remember it, which is unlikely. I should look for some golf cart. That's for you. You have to laugh at this shit, Bob. You have to laugh at it. Or is it too soon?
Okay, so those 2 exhibits are illustrating basically the context of the addition, or the context of my client's home, and how their addition would fit within the context of the larger neighborhood, and also illustrating where their property is on the street and in relationship to the Manoa Shopping Center parking lot. So you can see that the rear yard property line of the clients of 1425 Briarwood is shared by the Manoa Center parking lot. So there are no individual property owners in the backyard. Also, you'll see that my client's house and their immediate neighbors have basically the shortest backyards of any other, most of the other properties on the south side of Briarwood. So even as you spread out from left to right, you can see that their rear yards get a little bit larger. So the point of this is that my neighbors, or my clients and their immediate neighbors, have a unique property setup that's different from many of the properties in this zoning district.
It doesn't look like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't look like the backyard is square.
It's not square, it's a little bit curved, but the shortest, the measurements that I'm giving you are the shortest distances. So 1423 Briarwood has a rear addition that's 14 foot 6 inches deep, and the rear wall of the addition is 18 feet 4 inches from the rear property line, and encroaches on the 25-foot rear yard setback by 6 feet 8 inches. The owner has lived in the house for approximately 10 years, and the addition was constructed at the time that they bought the house, or it was there when they bought the house, I should say. The property on the other side, 1427 Briarwood, the rear addition is also 14 feet 6 inches deep, and the rear wall of the addition is 20 feet from the rear property line. So that addition encroaches 5 feet into the rear yard setback. That house has been in the family since 1963, and the owner and her husband have lived in, well, she grew up in the house, and then her husband, and she and her husband bought the house in 1988, but the addition was constructed in 1984. And there was a building permit. They told me they got a building permit. I'm assuming that they did, or that they have no reason to lie about it, but they said they got a building permit. So at that time, either the area and bulk requirements were different, or they received a variance, or there was a different circumstance. And I'm not really sure what that circumstance was. So those two exhibits, and I have exhibits which show the rear yards of each of those properties. So I can give you another exhibit. Rear yard of 1423 and 1427.
This was, this exhibit was what,
It's going to be 6. Sure. Yeah. I'm going to clarify it as soon as she's done handing them out. So the 1423 Briar Photos Backyard Edition will be A6, and 1427 will be A7.
So those photographs are there to illustrate that, illustrate pretty much what's there on each property and how it affects the backyard of each property. And as my client mentioned earlier, both of those neighbors are in favor of this addition. They don't have any issues with it. Additionally, the size of the neighbors' additions have not adversely affected my client's ability to enjoy their backyard. Certainly haven't adversely affected the ability of Manoa Shopping Center to have a parking lot. So the point being that if my clients were allowed to construct this proposed addition, they would not adversely affect anyone else's enjoyment of their yard or anyone else's ability to use their adjacent property. And so, in conclusion, the proposed addition is similar in depth to their immediate neighbors. The proposed addition is similar in size to the addition at 1427 Briarwood. The proposed addition would not impact the ability of immediate neighbors to enjoy their yards or use their properties. And the properties are unique because of their location next to the Manoa Shopping Center parking lot and the relative depth of their lots compared to other properties on that side of Briarwood. And I point that out so that, just to say that if you were to allow this addition or this variance to happen, it would be a unique condition, and you would not have to worry about other people coming up and saying, well, you gave it to them, so why can't you give it to me? So that's everything.
Questions? Jessica?
So it looks like the new addition is providing a secondary living room and a secondary dining area. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was any consideration made, because the rooms appear to be almost completely open to each other through what used to be existing windows, was any consideration made to doing the 7.5-foot addition and just creating larger living and dining spaces?
I think the intention, you can speak to this.
That would not help what we are aiming for. That would be a little way too smaller space for us. So if we are not allowed this, we probably won't go ahead with that.
I think the intention here is to create a separate space for the children to have friends over and play, and then the original space that has the kitchen and living space would be for the adults. There's no rec room, there's no space for a rec room or something else in this house, so the one living area is the communal living area for everyone.
What are the two rooms labeled lower level in the front of the plan?
So one is a small office area, and the other was a garage, which we recently changed into a bedroom.
Okay. And then my next question is, I know that complying with the building coverage, you said, would result in a 10-foot deep addition, but one of the neighbors did do a deeper addition that just didn't run the full extent of the house, which presumably complies with building coverage. So one of my questions would be why you need to extend the addition for the entire length of the house, because there does seem to be some empty space in the middle of that addition.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God? And your full name and address for the record, please?
Yes, yes, sir.
Your full name and address for the record?
My full name is just Peter Arora, and I live at 1425 Bradwood Road, Haverford Town, PA 1903.
Okay.
So I have to give some more background about the more space we need. Both Jessica and myself, we are teachers. She teaches at Temple University, I teach at Jefferson. So with COVID, we need more space, separate offices as well to teach because we're teaching from home. I have been teaching people mostly from industry, and now I'll be teaching people from Europe as well. So I will be teaching from home 5 a.m. in the morning. So we need those spaces to teach like separate offices besides our kids. So that's why we need more spaces, like convert part of those spaces to our office areas, and also take care of our mother-in-law. My mother-in-law, she lives with us. She's very old. So she spends most of her time in like the living space, one living space, which is at the first floor. She's like 72 years of age. So she needs to spend most of time over there. So she lives, because of COVID, she has some illness, so she doesn't want to go outside, trying to protect her from, because of her low immunity. So, and she's using one of the space. So we need additional space to take care of our office work as well as our kids. So that's why we want to have some additional space to take care of our job as well as our kids.
Okay, I guess I'm not sure how this rear space, which is completely open to your existing living space, is providing you with dedicated office space.
So that's why so mother-in-law, she can stay there, the kids can stay there, and we can use probably our one office area and our bedrooms to take care of our office or teaching responsibilities.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Ed?
Yeah, the question, I'm looking at Exhibit A2, and on the bottom photograph, there appears to be a shed, and I'm assuming that's in your rear yard?
This, in the existing,
Yes.
you're referring to the, no, there's, behind the bushes.
Yeah,
here.
so since recently we converted, there is no garage in this house. So that garage was going to be a bedroom. So that's why we have that shed there, it's like.
I don't have a problem with the shed per se, it's just the idea, I don't know what the distance is going to be between your addition and the shed. There's rules and regulations on how far that to be.
So if, I'm not aware of the road, if that's the requirement, so then this hut can be moved on the left-hand side when the addition is made. There is an empty space will be left on the left of the house, so that space will be exactly, can accommodate this hut if he has to move there. So it's movable, so it can be moved on that side if required.
Yeah, without a plot plan to be able to say where that is and how far it's going to be. In other words, the rule is it has to be a 10-foot separation between structures on the property. And we don't have anything to document that at this point. The other issue, in the photograph, one of the photographs, the aerial, and that would probably be A5. It shows a round circle. Is that a trampoline, or it's not in the latest photograph? But is there a pool or?
So it used to be a trampoline, now it's no longer there. So it was a trampoline, but now it's not there. It has been removed.
No, so it's not a pool. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Bill?
So, you realize that, and this can be for anyone, looking at Exhibit A3, you've set it up for a sliding glass door for rear access. But, and in A2, you currently have a patio, or a stone patio in the back. What's your plan to, are you going to put a stone patio outside the glass doors here?
So this part, so
We haven't thought about that yet until we get this approval.
Well, that's relevant to our approval.
Okay.
So whatever are the requirements, we can go by that.
The requirement, I mean, the issue is that you're building an addition that, under our zoning code, would make your house too big for the lot. Right? That you're in a district where the houses are supposed to be smaller, more compact on smaller lots, as you know, because your lot's particularly small, right? Given that you back up on the parking lot that juts out closer to you. You have a patio now that's impervious, and you've got furniture and a gas grill and things on it. And in pictures in A3, you don't show anything other than lawn after a small little step. And if you were to put a stone patio in there, you would increase your impervious coverage even more than you currently do. Now, I know it's not building coverage, but it's still impervious coverage. And did you include that in your pervious coverage calculations?
I didn't include a potential patio in my impervious coverage. However, there is extra, we're under the impervious, so we could put a patio on there that would be within the impervious.
Okay, so you are planning to presumably put a patio in that would bring you up to, but not over, the maximum impervious coverage of your property? Okay. The roof line of this addition is not the same as the roof lines of the addition of your immediate neighbors, is it?
No.
And so, from, I guess, a massing point of view, this addition will appear larger than the additions on either of your immediate neighbors.
Yes, yes.
And I don't think I saw in any of these depictions how you plan to handle the runoff from your roof now that you've increased your building coverage. Where will the gutters or downspouts be, and where will they connect to, and where will that water go?
We haven't given it any, we haven't given it a lot of thought. There is an existing downspout system which we would probably connect to.
Okay, so looking at page A2, I see a gutter along the entire rear roof line with 2 downspouts on either side, which appear to drop to the ground, and where do they go?
So one which is in the backyard, it goes like outside for the shopping center, like which is in the backside. So one in the front, the front side, they go like towards the road, the Briarwood Road.
So if you look at your picture of A2, the downspout on the left
Yeah, so on the
connects
left.
to an underground pipe?
No, it goes to, it's outside, it goes to, in a pipe, it goes towards the shopping center. Behind is the shopping
So
center.
it discharges onto the lawn, and then the lawn slopes towards the shopping center?
Yeah, it's connected with the pipe, the pipe takes towards the.
So it goes underneath the
So
ground.
it's outside. No, it's not underneath, it's like on the grass.
Above the ground.
Yeah, above the ground.
And then the one that's over, let's say, beyond your gas grill, that goes to the front?
Yeah, it goes right straight to the front, up to the road.
And so from a design point of view, what would be the plan? You would be connecting, you'd have gutters on the sides of the addition, and the one on the, looking at A3, first page, the one facing us, that would run towards the front of the property, and the one, the side of the new roof facing away from us would connect onto a surface line and run above ground over, along the contours towards the mall, or towards the shopping center?
Towards the shopping center.
Okay, I don't have any other questions, thank you.
Jesse,
So you testified that in the front of the house, the smaller of the 2 rooms is an office, a home office? That one of you, that you use for your teaching? And the larger, the former garage is now a bedroom for the mother-in-law?
Our daughter lives there.
Oh, okay, sorry. So there's 1 bedroom on the first floor, and how many bedrooms are on the second floor?
3.
There are 3, okay. It does look like the front of your house is 2 stories, and then the roof slopes to the back, and it becomes 1 story.
Yes.
Did you explore any second floor additions that would not push you into the rear yard setback at all?
So the way the house is designed, it's actually like a split level from the front to the back, if that makes sense. So you come in on the street level, you go up half a level, and then you're into a double height, almost like a cathedral ceiling space that's for living, and then you go up another half level, and that's what takes you to the 3 bedrooms. So to put a second story addition would be a lot of work.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to Jessica's point, trying to look for ways that it could have worked by right, of course, and we're looking for the most minimum relief that you need. That was. So, and to Ed's questions about the shed, do you happen to have any dimensional information that you could elaborate on that, or would you be able to provide that to us?
I don't have any now, but I could provide it.
And when Ed mentioned the 10 feet, it actually, and this confuses many people, it's 10 feet as a straight line all the way across. It's not 10 foot as in a radius. So that gets people a lot. We get that question here. So I think what he's pointing out is with the addition, I think it's unlikely that shed is going to comply with the 10 feet back. And it's also supposed to be 5 feet from each property line. It's supposed to be. It may be existing non-conforming, but it's supposed to be 5 feet off the rear, 5 feet off the side, and 10 feet from the back. So that's just another thing that we need to consider. And yeah, I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Anything else you would like to add? No?
Nothing, no.
Any other questions arise, Jessica?
Can you just confirm that this is truly the minimum amount of relief required to meet the needs?
Yes.
Okay.
Ed?
No other questions?
Bill?
No other questions?
Jesse? Okay. With that, I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that wishes to testify, anyone present that received regular mail, any other resident of Haverford Township. We will close the record on this case. The exhibits are admitted. We'll close the record on this case, and a decision will be rendered either this evening. If we're not able to reach a decision this evening, one will be rendered at our next regularly scheduled meeting, which will be either December 1st or 15th.
Thank you.
You just want. Regret it. I get a bill.
We're still on the record, Bob. I don't know what you
We'll take 10-minute recess. Thank you. Okay, we'll resume the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board of Thursday, November 17, 2022. With regard to case Z22-24, New Singular Wireless PCS LLC doing business as AT&T Mobility. Jessica, are you prepared to vote?
I am.
Ed, are you prepared?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Jesse?
Yes.
And so am I. Bill, would you please take that decision?
Sure. With respect to case Z22-24, I would vote to grant the requested special exception and variances set forth in the description of the case, subject to the following conditions. The applicant shall install and maintain a minimum 10-foot wide vehicular access with locked gates on the southeast side of the fence closest to the proposed monopole with a Knox box, K-N-O-X box, to allow emergency access to the rear of the property. 2, all uses of the property shall be in compliance with applicable zoning ordinances and other township permits, rules, and regulations. 3, there shall be no barbed wire installed on the site. 4, the applicant and its tenants shall maintain no hazardous or combustible materials or debris or refuse on the exterior of the building. And 5, the project will be completed within 1 year of the date of this approval and in accordance with the notes of testimony.
Okay, Jessica?
I agree.
Ed?
I am in opposition.
Jesse?
I agree.
So do I. That application is approved 4-1. With regard to KZ 22-29, Jasbir Aurora and Jazkurin Kaur, owners of 1425 Briarwood Road. Jessica, are you prepared to vote?
I am.
Ed?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Jesse?
Yes.
And so am I. Ed, would you please take that decision?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I vote to approve the requested variance with the following conditions. 1, runoff will be controlled in a fashion that will not adversely impact neighboring properties. 2, any future patio will comply with the zoning requirements, especially in regards to impervious surface limits. 3, the issue of the shed must be addressed to comply with Haverford Township zoning code. If not, it will need to be removed. 4, to be completed within 1 year of final approval. And finally, 5, to be completed in accordance with the notes of testimony.
Jessica?
I disagree.
Bill?
I just want, final approval means tonight, Ed, within 1 year, completed within 1 year of tonight's meeting. I agree.
Jesse?
I agree.
So do I. That application is approved 4-1. Ed, do you have minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Want to move
We have
into
minutes,
it?
and I can't find the agenda right now. but- What would their minutes were for what month?
11-3.
11/3. Minutes were distributed, and I'd like to recommend that there were some revisions that were done, and those have been taken care of. So I would like to recommend that the minutes be approved as distributed for November 3rd.
I'll second that.
Okay. Jessica? I'm going to do a roll call vote because I wasn't there, so I need to abstain. So,
I would agree with the motion.
and Ed, obviously you agree. You made the motion and the second. Jesse?
I agree.
Okay, and I am going to abstain because I wasn't present at the meeting, although I did read the minutes. And they told me, conveyed to me what happened at the meeting, so good job and thank you. Any other administrative matters?
Nope.
Okay, and we are adjourned.